not specifically me, but the utilities, come speak with you. It's nice for the utilities to get out in public a little bit more than we have in the past. So I've been asked to talk about a handful of things tonight, from rebates to kind of the energy mix of the utility and some other things. So we'll go ahead and start right away. So I have many different roles within the utility, but probably my core job is overseeing the utility SIP. So what is SIP? SIP is Minnesota's Conservation Improvement Program. It was established to have utility customers save energy, save money, introduce them to different energy efficiency trends, awareness to energy efficiency and energy savings means, and also to conserve resources and reduce CO2 emissions. So that's the core of it. It kind of, there's a little bit more to it. That's really the core. And of course now its main focus, out of all those is CO2 emissions reduction. That's kind of what it's revolving around to now. So just a short timeline. I could spend a lot of time just on this, and it's not the most, it's kind of dry. So the one thing I will say is this goes all the way back to about 1980. So the decade prior, there was an energy crisis. And so in 1980, the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission decided that to be more energy independent, the state should look at the feasibility of utilities starting energy improvement programs for their customers. So, and from there it's evolved into what it is now, which is numerous types of possibilities of rebates and energy conservation and whatnot. So, but we'll kind of skip over that. If you have one more detail, you can talk to me about that. The only other thing I'd probably mention is 2007, the Next Generation Energy Act was passed. That was under then Governor Tim Pawlenty. That really probably was the stepping stone that really vamped it up quite a bit, because at that point, energy savings wasn't captured through any programs. It was just the state knew what types of actions and purchases would save energy, and so the utilities just gave money out and didn't capture any actual real hard data. So now the data has been able to be collected since then. There's been some valuable information that's been gathered through the program that the utilities offer. So going into rebates. Well, first off, how does SIP capture all that data, right? Well, we do that through education, such as if you live in New Ulm, we have our newsletters that we send out bi-monthly, our utility calendar, and then specifically rebates. So that's really how we get that message out to people, because people like to get some sort of return on investment, right? So people can submit rebates for actions, but specifically purchases that they do. So types of rebates that a lot of utilities offer, and these are rebates that we offer and do all to our residential customers, go all the way from heating, high efficiency heating and boilers. So whether that's new home construction to a current home that's been 100 years old, and you need to replace something that went bad, to furnace check and cleans, and the same thing for AC units. So there's heating, there's cooling. New York Public Utilities is unique. So we have water and wastewater. We have a power plant. We also have a natural gas and electric department, right? So each of those utilities actually contribute funds and revenues from those departments into different into different types of rebates. So we offer natural gas rebates and electric rebates. So that's why there's some things where there's water heating. Granted, it could be electric or gas, but funds for like water heating and furnaces comes from our natural gas department, whereas things like appliances and the energy audits and AC units come from our electric department. One thing I'd like to mention is all these actions. So the rebates are issued because we give money to customers in exchange for something, really, and that's that information from them purchasing a certain product or doing a certain action. So each of those things have an algorithm associated with them, to where we give them money and I get information and I calculate the savings of that. The utility, or any utility, has to capture 1.5% savings from a 3-year average of how much energy that they sold. So For instance, we may need to capture 200 and some kilowatt hours of energy in a year. So that's kind of where that information gets gathered. It's from the customers, so I can report that to the state. Home energy audits are something where we actually don't capture any savings from doing that for customers. So the New England Public Utilities, I have an account set up where we actually pay 100% for home energy audits for people in the home. The reason why we do that, even though we don't capture any energy savings for that, is because it's important for individuals to know whether it's a residential customer or a commercial customer, how their home is functioning, whether whether a blower door test is conducted and you find out that your home is leaking a lot of heat or losing a lot of cooling in the summer is something that's pretty vital. It'll help you control bills going forward and kind of a checklist of what needs to be done and maybe prioritize, what you can do based on, the income you have and whatnot. Additionally, if there's anyone, really interested in solar or any other type of distributed energy resource, home energy audits are good for that as well, because if you get that information, you can use that to reduce your energy load in your home and then possibly reduce the amount of solar that you need for that home in the long run. So those are all, different types of rebates that we offer. LED lighting and appliances, they are Energy Star rated as a minimum. You see that a lot with, different utilities, including New England Public Utilities, because, the Department of Commerce uses Energy Star as a minimum kind of calculation for certain things, and that happens to be what we need to use for LED lighting and appliances. So that's kind of why you may see, the Energy Star logo on some of our rebate forms. Typical residential and commercial and industrial rebates, they're similar to residential, but they're just in a much larger scale. One thing I'll mention is, the high efficiency lighting and lighting controls. That's a really good starter for a lot of businesses. That's kind of like the low-hanging fruit of the rebate. It can be a quick payback. It could be 3.5 years to 1.2 years payback, and that's pretty big savings after that. So I'm going to wrap up at least this portion of the rebates. This is a 4-year average of where the utility is sat with our rebates. So I think I began this job in like November of 2017. So I go back at least till then or close to for data, because I know I can explain it when I report it and talk about it. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. So it looks like the utility is doing really good in one aspect, because you have 2 million some, and then only hundreds of thousands on another. But we're not comparing apples to apples. So what this shows is the amount of savings in kilowatt hours that the programs have captured from residential and commercial customers submitting rebates. So it's pretty impressive. We get probably, with natural gas rebates, 600 to 800 applications a year for natural gas, and we probably get 1,000 at least for electric. And this graph is only showing electric savings and money given back to residential and commercial customers. So each of those years, we've seen an increase, but there's also something that I would have liked to have added, and that's what what the state statutes say we needed to save. I know for sure the last 2 years, in 2021, 2022, we've either met or exceeded what we needed to for under state statutes. So, that really depends on how much I'm getting out there talking to people. It really does depend on how many people are utilizing the rebates. And also there's much more savings from commercial and industrial customers. So depending if they have capital projects and what they're doing in their business, and if they're reporting it and want to report it, that really does play into effect of what we're capturing for our programs in a given year. Let's see. So some reasons to utilize our programs. It's cash back. I mean, it's it's either a direct payment in the form of a check directly to you or a bill credit. Faster payback on investment. That may be something that later on Andrea may talk about, and talking about her lighting project and what I had mentioned before. You're reducing some sort of energy, so automatically you're getting at some point a payback, and then with a rebate, that could cut it down. It could only cut it down 3 to 4 months. It may cut it down to a year and a half, but it's still a quicker payback than not doing that. It's funded by ratepayers. So whether or not you know this or not, there's probably 3 or 4 different ways a utility can fund it. If they wanted to, they could just use their revenue in a given year, put it into the programs. It could be included in the kilowatt hour rate. So they could include it into your rate. Or a lot of investor-owned utilities put it as a rider on a bill. So a rider it's an additional line item on your bill, okay? So this will only take a minute, but I thought of this when I stopped at my office to grab my water bottle. As an example of, maybe why a person should do this. So say you have 950 kilowatt hours used in a particular month. And in this example, I'm using nothing's changing. The rates don't change and your usage doesn't change. It'll make it a little easier. Your rate is, I don't know, what does it say, 12.8 cents. So for that particular month, your utility bill, just straight energy use, was $121.60. So if a utility would have a rider on your bill, generally it's 1.5% of what you paid for that. So that's off of the $121. So you're investing $1.82. So $1.82 is added onto your bill as a line item to put in that utility's conservation improvement program. So over 12 months, over a whole year, you just put in $21.88, 89 cents, whatever. But you don't want to do the paperwork because it's too much work. You don't do it for a decade. Rates haven't changed in a decade either. And nor has your usage or anything else. So over 10 years, you invested or you put in $218.88. Why not try to get that back, right? Now you decide that you're going to do something because your AC went out. And as in New Ulm, most of the vendors actually put in the rebates for you on your behalf, which is really nice. It helps promote our programs. It's good business for them. You as a customer don't have to do anything. So it kind of works out for everybody. It's really nice that they do that. And they're really good to work with. So they put a rebate in for you, and you get a rebate of, I can't remember what the scale is, $230. So you just got back all the money you invested these 10 years, and you got an additional $11.12 that you didn't put in. So, it's a really good example. Why not use it? It's really not that hard to do. And one reason why it's not hard to do is how we have it set up. You could submit rebates on, online, everything online. If you're familiar with the phone, you can just use your phone, a laptop if you have a scanner. If you're not tech friendly at all, you don't even own a computer, as long as you have an invoice, we can get you a rebate. Because we can contact a vendor, or say you're at a big box store. I don't like to name names of stores, but any store that may have a receipt with a SKU number, I or someone else can look up that information online, get that data, and we end up doing everything online anyways. So we'll just get that information, do it online, and submit it for you. So there's really no reason to not do it. I think we have it set up fairly easy for people. And if you have any questions, you just need to give us a call or stop by our office, and we can help you out. Myself or anybody up front is pretty familiar with how everything kind of functions. So, okay, I was also asked to talk a little bit about New Ulm's energy mix, renewable energy and everything else. So we have a purchase power agreement with Heartland Energy, which is located in South Dakota. We buy 18 megawatts of energy hourly from them to make sure we're meeting at least part of the utilities need during any given hour. So we get 18 megawatts of energy we purchase from them. I looked at some of the data that I have, and I kind of averaged out the last 6 years of New Ulm's usage, and that's all rate classes, and it was pretty interesting. I mean, I look at it a couple times a year, but I've never used it in anything other than reporting to the state on our programs. So it's about 194,769,000 kilowatt hours, which has been an average over the 6 years. And I decided to look at that because it was kind of brought up, with energy conservation and other things, what's been the trend for people now, due to energy efficiency and solar or what have you, has the consumption of the customers gone down? And it really hasn't. And a lot of things with utilities is not black and white. There's lots of reasons why that may be. There could be people have done lots of energy conservation. They've saved money and then they add it onto their plant, or they've added onto a production line on the industrial and commercial side. So there could be lots of different factors. And then I looked at just residential usage, and I did a monthly. So monthly average for a residential customer over the last 4 years has been 636 kilowatt hours. I don't know if anybody can anybody in the room even say that that's what they use? It's factual information. It's 100% real based on the number of meters. It is a little misleading because you could have a single person living in an apartment that's using 178 to 220 kilowatt hours at the highest in a year. Additionally, a garage that has a meter, so it's a little skewed on certain locations that aren't using a lot to, a family of 4 or 5 or more that has a 4-bedroom home. A lot of people are in the house changing the room temperature, and they could be averaging 900 or 1,200 kilowatts a month. So, but we get asked that question a lot. I get a lot of calls on, what's the average, usage of a single-family home? And there's just way too many variables to sit here and say, what that may be. But if somebody asks, that's the actual real data that we have. And then going back to the overall energy of New Ulm, so of that 18 megawatts, 28, 29% of that is renewable in the form of wind. So that equals 5.5 megawatts is renewable. So the overall renewable portfolio of New Ulm is, the energy that we purchase is actually 25%. We also get 0.4 megawatts of hydro from WAPA. That's like places, WAPA has, I think they have like 57 locations that have hydropower. And WAPA ends just, east of New Ulm. So we're lucky that we can even get anything, but we get a little bit of hydro mix in there as well. And then of course there's portions that we purchase from the market. So, and the market in this area is MISO, Continent Independent System Operator. And there's portions of that are additionally, renewable. That's kind of whatever is on the grid, whatever we buy. So this is actually from their website, just a snapshot in time, April 3rd, 2024, 9:25 in the morning. It's not order of what's on the grid the most, they kind of have it however. Natural gas, which is kind of becoming the more common fuel on the market, was on there the most. But wind was, it's been windy in the Midwest the last few days and wherever. So that could be one reason why, wind was so up there, but it was kind of nice to see wind being utilized so much. And, coal is coming third most fuel source on the market at that particular time. That's one thing you have to remember, whenever they put this out, it's a snippet in time. So, but however much we were purchasing that day and at that time, you can calculate, how much additional, renewables and other forms of energy were in our mix for that particular day and month and year and whatnot. Gets a little tricky when it changes nonstop throughout the day, to figure that out. But it's data that we could eventually get. So it's just something I thought was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure if people really, know the type of things that are on the market or on the grid at any given time, so.
Are we
Yes.
trying to do less with coal?
Okay, so back to, that 18 megawatts. So the remaining, 5.5 is wind, the rest is coal, because that's who we buy that from. So we're done with that contract unless it gets renewed in 2030. 2030. So internally, we have a 2040 state mandate to be, carbon free. So we have lots I actually just had a meeting last week with, I don't know if I can say who it is, with a company that deals with, generators and solar and battery storage. We've met with other companies that deal with RECs, renewable energy certificates, because it gets to be hard. I actually have some data, I don't know if I'll have time to talk about it. I took what the New Ulm's usage was, and I did the calculation of how much solar New Ulm would need to cover that load, and I got it down to how many acres we'd need. So it's just to put it in perspective, why hasn't this occurred? Why a big reason why, at one time before I had started, the utility was looking at wind across the river, didn't work out. Another reason they haven't done anything going forward is it wouldn't have happened unless we would have raised rates substantially, because as a municipal utility, we can't take any benefits of tax credits. So you see investor-owned utilities putting up solar, not just a small example size, okay, outside the office, acres of things. It's because they can get a tax credit, so it makes it feasible for them to do that, where it would just be purely 100% out of pocket for a municipal utility to do that. So, yeah, we could have did something small to say we did it, but why we haven't done anything bigger until now is because now we still can't get tax credits, but we can get, instead of a tax credit, we can get what's called a direct payment. So it's the same type of thing, but different. So, that's why we're aggressively looking into that. On top of the mandate of 2040. But there's different things that a utility can do, with that 2040. Some hydro isn't included at all, unless it was prior. Pretty much you're pushing a lot of solar and wind and whatnot. So, yeah, we have some sites in town that we've talked to some consultants about, but it's city-owned property, so it's also looking to see what they may want to use it for. But then you can also look at different ways. The EDA, it's not new information, so I can share this. They've submitted applications for 7 of their locations. So internally, the city and the utility are looking to put stuff on their buildings to reduce their internal load, which as a city or a municipality, reducing our load helps the taxpayers, and as a municipality, we don't collect taxes, but it helps the ratepayers then. So there's different things that I know we're looking at on the utility side, and the city is definitely doing some things on their side. So talking about, solar, this isn't city, it's individuals, commercial properties or residential. It's hard to see customers. So, and it's small on my screen. So if I remember right, we had 10 or 11 applications last year for solar. 9 or 10 of the 11 were commissioned. There's one still being, that was submitted, an application was submitted last year, they haven't done anything with it yet. And then, this spring they're gonna build it for the person on their house, and then it'll get commissioned. But we commissioned 9 or 10 locations last year. That's probably 2 or 3 more than the prior year, and then probably 6 more than that in the previous year. So each year, we get 3 or more than the previous year. So we have, it says we have 28 locations. We've actually commissioned we've done 28 solar commissioning tests. So sometimes the numbers get skewed. There's actually 25 locations in New Ulm that have solar. 3 of those locations initially put solar on, and then they came back a year or 2 later and put an additional X amount of kilowatts of solar. at that location. So then it gets recommissioned, and that's why the number is a little bit more than what the actual number of locations are. So there's 25 locations in New Ulm that actually have solar, and the total kilowatt of all those locations is just under 293 kilowatts. So we're getting a lot more. We already have, like I said, EDA has 7 locations. I already have 8 solar applications in this year, and we did 10 last year. So we haven't even hit, full spring. So there's going to be a lot of solar going on, especially with tax credits that are higher on lots of different things. A lot of people are doing that. So that's kind of the summary of the items I was asked to kind of mention. I don't know if you wanted to talk before I answer any questions, or I can answer questions beforehand if anybody has any.
Thank you, but hang around.
Yeah.
And, there might be some after Andrea does her thing.
Yeah.
What would be the most impactful thing that a residential customer could do to use more renewable energy, or to find anything to cut back on usage?
Well, I can't remember, did you get an energy audit this last time around?
Yep.
Yep, okay, have you gotten the report from them yet?
Yes.
Have you, okay. Well, if it's something that, I'm sure they could answer any questions, but if you wanna stop in, we can go over it and do like a prioritize, looking at that way. I mean, that's probably,
So it's different for each family. So you can't just say this is the most impactful for everybody.
well, I mean, I guess that depends on the person. I mean, the biggest, to me, the things that I've been told and that I've read in some, classes and certifications is, the biggest load on a facility, whether it's a home or a commercial building, seems to be, HVAC systems, right? So I would do what you can to limit, the loads of the HVAC systems, whether it's cooling or heating. It could be the little things of checking your windows, because windows cost a lot. I got a quote last year for new pocket windows, and it was $55,000 to get new windows.
Yeah.
So I bought my own and put my own in. So I cut it in half. I had a friend who had done that in the past, so we're still tackling that, but not everybody can do that. I would eliminate as much air leakage as you can from your house to keep that in. Caulking the outside of things. If you don't have a programmable thermostat, I would get that. Doesn't need to be Wi-Fi. We don't rebate for just regular thermostats. They need to be Wi-Fi. That's just the way the trend's going. But utilizing that properly and keeping it as comfortable as you can, or as low as you can, depending on the time of the season, so you're comfortable to limit that high load. So turning the water heater down. So after HVAC systems, water heating is probably the next biggest load on the house. So there's lots of little
I
things.
could bring that report to you though, and we could have a discussion sometime about how to read that and what information.
Yeah, we could look at that. We could look at possible rebates,
Okay.
that you could still do and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how much does it cost that average home? I know everything's different, but
Yeah.
just ballpark figure for like solar, like those people are doing
Oh,
or whatever. Would you, just a
yeah.
guesstimate, I mean, I'm not.
I suppose if they have solar, it depends what it has. It depends what they have it sized at. Because you can size something to try to, cover 100% of your load, but you maybe only want to or can afford to cover 50%. There's some people that still might, pay $100, but they may monthly use over 2,000 kilowatts, which I don't even get close to that. But they have it sized. But there's some people I can't say who it is, but there is a handful where we're paying them, maybe $10. But some people then are only paying, $40 a month. And it gets tricky because, they're trying to sell a product. And I know from looking at the EDA's information and past information, they sell it with a payback, right? Because everybody wants a payback. They'll say this payback is for 12 years, based on a 3% rate increase yearly, or EDA had a 5% rate increase. Okay, we did just have a rate increase, but before that it was 4 years that we had a rate increase, and before that 4 years, it was like 7 years. So if you're looking at it as a payback, it's kind of stretched a little bit farther than 12 years, so, yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna come next week and talk about solar, and
Yeah.
I can talk about the pricing, and if you wanna talk about it, I'm not a dealer, I'm a guy who puts some in. And I'm a guy who's
You're a
got a
guy.
work relationship where our organization is
Just
just,
a guy.
I'm just a guy. So I'm selling nothing
Go
else,
ahead.
so.
But they're also comparing that where they probably sell a lot, which is Excel, I shouldn't say the company, but investor-owned utilities, which I just read they had a 13% increase. So it kind of depends, just something to look out for, what your data is.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Okay, so how does this work? What do? I just go up and how much time do I have?
20 minutes.
Okay. All right,
Yes.
Derek?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do I just have to stand right here?
Oh, you can stand
Whatever you
Wherever I want. Okay, the cameras are gonna be on me. Can I walk around?
You can.
Okay. So my name is Andrea Betker. I am the Executive Director of New Ulm Turner Hall. And after being here today and hearing what Derek was talking about, I'm excited, and if it's okay with the League of Women Voters, who I want to thank for having me here today, I do want to talk as well about some of the projects that the city is working on and some of the things that we have up our sleeve, because I think that while talking about the project that we did at Turner Hall is really important and relevant, and will resonate with some folks that are looking to do some of these smaller things like upgrade their LED lights, it's really important to know what we're doing as a city and where we're going, and a lot of that conversation was sparked by these thoughts were sparked by Derek and some of the things he said. And so I know I have about 20 minutes, so I'm going to talk very clearly and very quickly. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or interrupt me. Another thing that I would like to do before I get started is, whether she knows it or not, I'm going to introduce her now. The Public Utilities Commission just brought in an intern yesterday. Her name is Katarina Vezevich. She is here from us from the University of Munster, the School of Applied Sciences, and she's going to be working with the Public Utilities Commission on some water projects that the city's looking at doing. So she's going to be doing some water testing, doing some feasibility studies. So she'll be around the community. I'm sure, Derek, you've met her already. She's actually staying with me. And I know I'm going to talk about Turner Hall, and I'll get to that in a second, but on an unrelated story, today when I was at my house cleaning out my refrigerator and throwing away my moldy cheese and my expired mayonnaise and dumping all of this stuff down the drain and throwing things in the garbage, I go, this is kind of breaking your heart a little bit, isn't it, to see, she's like, yes, so much waste and so much plastic and, and then I had stopped on an errand here on the way here, and I'd left my car running, and I go, oh, I left my car running. And so, when we talk about things that we can do to conserve energy, it's literally every single thing. Like when I walked in here, Peg handed me a water bottle. I should have had my own, and so it's those things. But we as Americans actually lose over 50% of the energy that we produce through, leaky windows or open doors, or anyone that's walked in New Ulm in the wintertime with the steam heat knows, we got the steamy windows on the businesses and have those opened up. So I will circle back to some of those things, but I'm actually here to talk about Turner Hall and one of the projects that we did. Actually, it was 4 years ago at this point that we did it. So back in 2019, the executive director of the United Way sent an email out to all the businesses in regards to a Minnesota deed grant that was available. And at the time, I was still, very overwhelmed with my work at Turner Hall, but I read it through, and it was, an energy grant, and it was a rebate, and I thought, Turner Hall, oldest, gymnastics program, oldest bar in Minnesota, oldest everything. We have to have, what are we going to do? We got to start doing this. Sound mind, sound body. Turner Hall has to be the example for these kinds of things. And, I was walking around the building one day, and anyone that's been in that building has seen the big old bulb. I mean, it's as big as my arm here, these big bulb lights that used to hang in the ceiling. And over the years, so many of them were in disrepair or burnt out. And the ones that did work, you could hear them buzzing. And so there was a lot of dimness in the gym. For wedding couples, I'm like, oh, we can't have anything over in that corner because the lights over there don't work. So I thought, I want to see what an LED upgrade will do. So we applied for that deed grant, and believe it or not, we got it. So we got $6,000 towards the lighting upgrades at Turner Hall. So what they did is we had companies bid, and the winning bidder came in and removed all of the big bulbs, all the recessed lighting, and then replaced them with LED panels that hang down just a little bit. And we went from having 24 lights in the gym to having 12. And I'll never forget, it was on Valentine's Day, because I'm like, I love this, so I'll never forget. It was installed on Valentine's Day. But when we turned on those lights, it was so bright in that gym that I actually got a headache. And it was probably, the best headache I ever had. But, it was really bright, and it gave us options, and it brightened the room for the kids doing gymnastics in the gym. It brightened the room for folks that were coming in for conferences. It made our room more attractive to other people to come and use, and that's what we need. We need that space used constantly. And it's really hard to say precisely how we benefited, but in comparison of our electric bills, and I did kind of a 6-month comparison following that upgrade of our utility usage, specifically our electric usage, and it was saving Turner Hall over $400 a month. And I won't tell you what our utility bills are now, and I'm sure Derek knows, but no, actually I will. In the wintertime, our steam heat bills have run us as much as $6,000 a month. $5,000 a month. I dread getting the mail in February and opening the utility bill and going, oh my gosh, because we know that we have lots of opportunities for improvement. And so a couple of years ago, we had Derek come in and his group, and we did an energy audit and found a lot of things that aren't really great at Turner Hall. Like one of our steam traps is in backwards, and our valves are old and leaking. So there's opportunities. And with those opportunities comes cost, I guess you can say. And so, we're working to not make that a barrier, because we do have some energy rebates available, and Derek didn't talk to this one specifically, but there is one that's up to $7,500 for industrial customers for what is that, Derek? Is that just related to steam specifically?
Yeah.
Steam enhancements. I know that there is at least one business downtown that has redone their HVAC system and converted to warm water, reluctantly at first. It was just on a recommendation. And I had bring in an engineer friend of mine from St. Paul. He's one of the foremost authorities on steam heat conversions to warm water heat in the world. And they, talked to that guy, and he goes, the business owner downtown says, I'm going to do this with all my buildings. Like if I can save this much money and do this and, use less energy, it just makes sense. And so it's about having that mindset and changing that mindset a little bit. So, we at Turner Hall were able to take advantage of that deed program, so the $6,000 to cover the lighting upgrades and the labor, which, when we can get that covered, that's a plus. And then, just like Derek said, they actually turned in the rebate information for us, and so we got another $1,200 to support that project. And so that was a matching grant, so that helped us just have to take less money out of our pocket to get those things done. But in doing the math, it took us less than 2 years to see the savings just on that particular project. So if you are thinking about doing things in your home, like I just bought a couple of new appliances, and I'm like, shoot, I didn't put my rebate in, so I'm gonna see if I can get that done. Turner Hall just bought a new refrigerator and cooler downstairs, and so I'm gonna talk to Derek and see if we can get that in, because I don't want to say it's free money, it's money that we're investing in, but it's money that should be coming back to us. So I'm gonna stop there for a second and see if anyone has questions on that Turner Hall project itself. Okay. We did apply for another deed grant to do our steam valves and stuff. I was really hopeful that we would get that one. We did not, so we have to put that project on pause, but it's still on our radar. And something that we think is, again, going to benefit us in a shorter amount of time than we actually think, with the cost savings that relate to, again, that energy recapture, like not losing half of the energy that we're producing as Americans. So, but if it's okay, I'm going to put on my city hat as city council president and an EDA commissioner, just to talk about some of the things that the city is doing or is pursuing in regards to reduced energy usage. And, you know, that is one of the things that, one of the phrases I'm going to continue to say, because I think no matter who you are and what you believe, you know, being able to use something for as long as you can before you get rid of it or throw it away, like that's something that we can all get behind. And it's part of the reason that I'm very happy to have Katerina living with me, because she's going to be holding me accountable. I think every time I look at her, you know, I'm going to be changing those behaviors and, you know, being more mindful of like what type of packaging I'm purchasing things in, and making sure that I'm only making enough that I'm eating, and, you know, turning off the lights and turning off my car. And, you know, those are all just kind of those small habits that I know I can do better of right here. She's probably looking at me going, yes, yes, yes. But that we can all do a better job with. But Derek did talk to this a little bit in regards to solar. So the EDA recently has started a project, and I can't say which stage it is in right now, but to put solar on some of our city-owned buildings, our rental units and some of those buildings. We know that that project is in pursuit. I know that their Region 9 Development Commission, which covers our 9-county area, which I serve on their board of directors, is pursuing a grant for to support solar on publicly owned buildings within the region. And so that would be a huge grant opportunity for us, because it doesn't just include city-owned buildings, it includes publicly owned buildings, so that we can kind of have that bigger reach. We are also, you know, there's times here where we're going to be digging up our street, and we all know that our steam system and our underground infrastructure is pretty old, you know, around 100 years or so. And so trying to see what we can do to use that opportunity to put in, you know, more efficient piping and do that slow conversion from the steam to potentially the warm water. Being mindful that some of our businesses have chosen the locations that they have, or have their companies at the places they have, because they need that steam heat. But, you know, if a city like Duluth can convert their stuff to warm water, you know, that's something that we can do as well. And I don't know the actual figures on the energy savings, but it is extremely, extremely significant. So, so those are the things that we're looking to do. At least I'm, you know, looking to pursue opportunities to just use less energy. And maybe Derek, you can answer this question. You know, if we as consumers use less energy, does the PUC make less money necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Can you tell me why that is?
Well, part of, you know, and part of these slides, defer costly infrastructure investments. So, you know, if you're going to be wasteful with your energy, you know, utilities build their infrastructure based on what the customer needs, right? So, you're being wasteful, and businesses add more on, and they're wasteful. People are wasteful. We will have to increase substation capacity, you know, more of this and more of that. So, you know, that's part of why when they did their feasibility study in 1980, you know, that's something they factored in, is that with energy savings, energy efficiency, you know, that ultimately can reduce your rates in different ways by not having the utility do unnecessary upgrades and investments. I mean, we'll eventually, you know, right, people do energy efficiency in their buildings, especially say commercial or industrial, like I said before. Some businesses will add on, get more production, and level out or increase that load a little bit. They may have more demand. There might be infrastructure that needs to be upgraded at that point, but it's not unnecessary, it's needed due to, you know, progress. So.
And that includes things like making sure, you know, I guess and I don't know enough about this to speak about it like a scientist. I know just enough to be dangerous, but you know, with some of the changes, you know, we have to make sure, you know, adding all this solar, that we have like the grid infrastructure to support that as well. And so that's something that we're mindful of as a community. You know, some of the stakeholders and those working on these projects are making sure that we can do. So, you know, if somebody came tomorrow and was like, I want to put 15,000 solar panels in New Ulm, like, I don't know that we'd be ready for, you know, something like that, but it's something that we're working to make sure that we're ready for. Another thing, just in regards to energy savings and reuse is, something that I would personally like to see, maybe not necessarily within New Ulm, because we might not have the land capacity for that, but really within our county would be something like an anaerobic biodigester, which takes the waste from some of the different manufacturers. Some places take it from restaurants, food waste and that kind of thing. They throw everything into a big digester that gets converted into heat energy that gets pumped out and reused. That's kind of the easiest way to break it down. But New Ulm is so unique and so ready for an opportunity like this because we have a municipally owned utilities, because we have a cheese manufacturer, a butter manufacturer, a beer manufacturer, a fragrance manufacturer, and the technology is a little bit different when we're talking about hog farms, but our area is, very heavy in those types of manure that can also be converted into energy as well. And so if you guys are really interested in kind of what some of these possibilities are, our region, so our 9-county area, recently underwent a huge study from a grant that we received, Region 9 received, from a company called EcoStrat that did an assessment of our area, and based on our available corn stover gave our region an A ranking. And so the rankings are AAA, which nobody's ever gotten, AA, which only a 2 have gotten, and an A is one that our region has received for this, which means that through conversations with the farmers, through conversations with manufacturers and with local leadership, our area is investor ready for that type of business. I've been kind of following some of the news on some of the other reports, and so there's one that just came out for an area in Kansas, and they got a B rating, and I'm like, woohoo, like we're doing better with our corn than Kansas. And so, I just, for those out there listening, obviously we want to talk about the importance of doing those little things at home, and just knowing that if you have questions, you can call the PUC, you can talk to Derek or talk to somebody about, what would maybe qualify for some of those rebates. And they do a good job of getting them out to you, and we're all contributing to that, so we want to kind of pull back from that pot as well when we can, and we do things to make ourselves more energy efficient. But that, as somebody that's one of the leaders in your community, I am thinking bigger. I am having those conversations. I am learning about how much bone dry tons are, these things that I didn't think that I would have to learn, for some of the local stuff that we're doing, some of the zoning, and getting the business owners together and talking to them about, what are your energy, goals. I know Kraft just received a very large Department of Energy grant that is being shared between a number of their plants, and one of which is New Ulm, to do some very large energy upgrades. We're talking $2 million of upgrades just to that Kraft plant. And so, these companies care about that. We want them to stay here. We want to make sure that, we're supporting them in some of those things because they're some of the largest energy users we have. So, what we can do is, just be mindful of the things I talked about, like not throw out so much food and, bring our metal or plastic water bottles along. Keep our thermostats low, I guess. It's just all those little things that really add up. But I really want to, again, just thank the League of Women Voters. I know I went totally off topic here, and I may be saying things, nothing I've said isn't public, so I'm not worried about that. But I wanted to see if anyone had any questions.
I have a question what's the difference between the steam heat and the warm water stuff?
So the steam heat just requires a lot more energy to get it that hot.
Right, so
Yep.
That's better than the warm water?
Yes, the warm water can give you the same result. There are some concerns like, oh, it's a very cold climate here. They're doing it in Duluth, they're doing it in Denmark, they're doing it like all over. But for those, like I said, for those needing that steam, we would want to be mindful of that. But I don't think there would be a ton of business owners in town if we walked in and said, hey, here's your options to convert your existing system. It's expensive to do it on your own, so, businesses can do that, or the city can do it, and I don't know how all of that works, but we're good. But if we said we can lower your utility costs, We can have you using less energy, and we don't have to have you have your door open 3 months out of the year when it's cold. Most of the business owners would be like, okay, where do I sign? You know, and so, you know, it's about that education. It's about the information. It's about having those resources. And I think Minnesota is, you know, just I don't want to say leading the way. There's other states that are doing a great job as well. But, you know, having accountability for what our footprints are and, you know, things that we can be doing better. And again, it's just all about not using as much energy. It doesn't mean that you're making any less necessarily. It means that they're needing to get less for us to use, if that makes sense. So.
I thought they used the steam for something else too. I thought it was a two.
There's a high pressure and there's low pressure.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's 3 high pressure customers that use it in the process,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Okay,
rest
but they
are.
don't use it to make electricity for the city?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the power plant. The power plant is like a standby unit. So one way the utility makes money is MISO will call up when they need energy. They can call us up, and if we can get that plant up by a certain amount of time, that's a revenue source. It can supply energy to the whole city. It's expensive because they use fuel, but essentially the steam produces electricity. And I mean, where my office is, there's a back pressure steam turbine, and that actually feeds electricity to the admin department. Where in years past, before they had that the steam turbine, in order to take the 400 some pound steam to bring it down to 140 for the high pressure customers, and down to about 9 pounds for the low pressure. To separate that, they'd vent it off. Now that can capture the energy and produce electricity for the offices.
And again, I'm still learning,
And the hot water steam, Emerson Union, that's what they use.
Mhm.
So what it does is the steam is delivered to the building, and there's a heat exchanger that steam goes through with and heats the water, and the water goes out. They'll use it for baseboard heat, water heating. Some places do water heating with it. So there's different ways, or it could be steam at a plant and then push the hot water out. But there's always, depending on how it's done and how far it travels, there's BTU loss. So there's lots of different variables and designs to do that with. So. Yep.
What percentage of homes do you think has gas for their furnace?
A lot.
Yeah.
At least in New Ulm, I don't know per se what percentage. It's cheaper than electric. The cost for electric resistance heating is much more expensive, which is why most people have gas. But most people do, unless it's a heat pump, a high efficiency heat pump for heating and cooling. Then you get a much more comparison price compared to natural gas. But it still might be it's getting better where you can use heat pumps in this climate. They do over New England area. They use it similar climate. So yeah, or at least until the point where you may have to it gets 30 below and you want to take your furnace on, where a mini split might cover for a good portion of that.
So that's not a reason to get electric, like an electric furnace?
I wouldn't get an electric furnace. I would get a heat pump. That's what I would get. And at least you could supplement. When I talk to certain businesses downtown, they want to keep their steam heat. They like it, but they don't have they don't have the funds to fix everything, but they want to do something. Put in a mini split heat pump. Maybe the apartment's upstairs. You can utilize that. They're super efficient until it gets to be super cold, and you can kind of supplement that put the steam on. Because the biggest thing with steam is, it's a great heating source. It's radiant heat. We're used to radiant heat from the sun. It's warm. It can be 30 below and it's sunny out, and you're on a long drive and the sun is coming through your car and you're warm, right? It's that radiant heat we've evolved with and we like. Where a forced air heating system, the warm is at a certain temp, but it's blowing on you and it's cooler than what you think, you know, it feels cool. So, the biggest thing with the steam is people don't keep up with their system. You have steam traps within a system to stop the steam, And when those traps don't work, the steam blows through your system. And we're talking about, you know, steam could be 230 some degrees or more, and it's blowing through your steam system, and it's doing that, it's going through your meter. It's cooling and going through your meter faster than what you think. So if you keep up on the steam system and you insulate your pipes, you do the same type of things that you do in your home. Like you wouldn't not check your furnace for 10, 20 years. Why should you not do that with the steam system? There's still, it's a simple system, but there's things in there that need to be checked. So if that's done, it should work properly. It'll help you out.
That was the last one.